Bondi Beach was alive that day. The sun was high, the shoreline crowded with families, tourists, and locals enjoying what felt like an ordinary, peaceful afternoon. Children played near the water. Conversations blended with the sound of waves. There was no sense of danger, no warning that anything was about to go wrong. Then everything changed. In an instant, calm turned into chaos. People began running, not slowly, not carefully, but desperately. Screams cut through the noise of the crowd. Confusion spread faster than anyone could understand what was happening. In moments like that, the human instinct is simple: escape. Get as far away as possible. Protect yourself. Protect your loved ones. And that's exactly what most people did. But in the middle of that panic, while hundreds were fleeing, one man moved in the opposite direction. No badge. No weapon. No training. Just an ordinary father of two, standing at the edge of an impossible choice. He didn't have time to think about bravery. He didn't stop to weigh the risks. He didn't wait for instructions. He ran toward the danger, knowing full well he might not come back. That single decision, made in seconds, would likely save lives and change how this moment would be remembered. So the question isn't just what happened at Bondi Beach. It's why one man chose courage when fear ruled everyone else. If you value real stories of courage, sacrifice, and moments that define humanity, subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up like this video to honor acts of bravery that deserve to be remembered. Speech balloon and stay with us until the end, because understanding this moment means understanding what it truly means to step forward when it matters most. Before the panic, before the sirens, before the running, Bondi Beach was exactly what people expect it to be. Bright. Busy. Alive. It was one of those days where the shoreline felt endless, packed with families spreading towels across the sand, tourists taking photos, and locals moving through the crowd like it was just another normal day. Laughter carried in the air. Music played from portable speakers. Conversations overlapped as people enjoyed the warmth of the sun and the comfort of routine. There was no visible security presence raising concern. No tension in the crowd. No reason for anyone to feel unsafe. This wasn't a restricted area or a controlled event, it was an open, public space. A place people associate with relaxation, not fear. Children were nearby. Parents were relaxed. The sense of normalcy was complete. That's what made what came next so shocking. Because when violence breaks out in places like this, places meant for rest and joy, it doesn't just disrupt the moment. It shatters the belief that nothing like that could happen here. And that's important to understand. No one at Bondi Beach that day woke up expecting their lives to intersect with danger. No one arrived prepared to make life or death decisions. Everyone there was simply living their lives, unaware that, within minutes, instinct would replace thought and fear would replace calm. This was the environment in which everything changed. And in that environment, ordinary, open, and unsuspecting, the moment of violence would erupt without warning, forcing split-second decisions that would define what happened next. Then, in an instant, the atmosphere at Bondi Beach shifted from relaxed to terrifying. The first shots shattered the calm, and chaos swept through the crowd like a wave. Families, tourists, and beachgoers alike were thrown into immediate confusion. Some froze, some screamed, while others ran instinctively towards safety. The air became thick with panic. Children clung to parents, friends shouted warnings, and strangers scrambled to find cover. The sounds of gunfire echoed over the beach, mixing with cries and the chaos of hundreds of people trying to escape. Witnesses later described it as a scene from a nightmare. An ordinary day turned into a surreal struggle for survival in a matter of seconds. The attacker exploited the dense crowd and the confusion, moving rapidly and unpredictably. People were left disoriented, unsure which way to run or where to hide. The energy of the crowd shifted from leisure and enjoyment to pure adrenaline and fear. It was in this environment of immediate threat and disarray that most focused only on survival. Yet amid the panic, one man made a decision that defied instinct. While everyone else fled, he ran directly toward the danger, In those critical seconds, the ordinary became extraordinary, and the stage was set for a moment of unprecedented courage. This moment defines the contrast between fear and action, illustrating how a single decision can impact the lives of many in mere seconds. Ahmed al-Ahmed was, by all appearances, an ordinary man on an ordinary day. A 43-year-old father of 2 young daughters and a small business owner in Sydney, he had no formal training in combat, law enforcement, or handling firearms. He was simply enjoying the day at Bondi Beach, attending the public celebration, unaware of the danger that would erupt. His life before this event was defined by routine, running his fruit shop, caring for his family, and being part of his local community. He was not seeking recognition, glory, or media attention. In fact, Ahmed had no preparation for what he was about to face. It is essential to understand that his extraordinary actions did not come from a place of skill or prior experience. There were no rehearsed maneuvers, no protective gear, and no weapons. What drove Ahmed was instinct, a sudden, unfiltered response to imminent danger and the need to protect others. This context makes the courage he displayed all the more remarkable. It was not the courage of a trained operative, it was the courage of a father, a neighbor, a human being confronted with a life-and-death choice in real time. His presence at the scene, coupled with ordinary circumstances, sets the stage for the split-second decision that would follow, a choice that would change the course of the attack and the lives of countless people nearby. As the chaos unfolded, there was no time to think in full sentences. No time to weigh consequences or consider outcomes. Fear was everywhere, in the screams, in the movement of the crowd, in the way people ran without looking back. Gunfire had already broken the sense of safety. In moments like this, the human brain defaults to one command: escape. But Ahmed didn't follow that instinct. Witness accounts and available footage show that while people scattered in every direction, he moved the opposite way, toward the source of danger. There was no pause. No visible hesitation. No moment where he looked for help or waited for someone else to act. He saw what was happening, and he made a decision. This wasn't a calculated move. It wasn't planned or strategic. It was a reaction rooted in something deeper than logic, a reflex driven by urgency and responsibility. In that instant, he wasn't thinking about himself. He wasn't thinking about survival. He was thinking about stopping what was unfolding in front of him. That split second matters. Because most defining moments don't announce themselves. They arrive suddenly, violently, and without instructions. And in that fraction of time, when most people were choosing distance, Ahmed chose proximity. He chose to close the gap between himself and danger. That decision alone altered the course of what could have followed next. The distance between Ahmed and the attacker closed fast. There were no barriers. No protection. Just a few steps separating an unarmed civilian from an active threat. What followed happened in seconds, but those seconds carried enormous risk. According to witness accounts and video evidence reviewed by authorities, Ahmed physically engaged the attacker. This was not a controlled takedown. It was a raw, dangerous struggle in the middle of chaos, bodies moving, people screaming, and panic still rippling through the area. At close range, the danger multiplied. During the confrontation, shots were fired. Ahmed was hit, once in the arm and again in the hand. Despite being wounded, he did not disengage. He continued to wrestle for control, using his body and strength to disrupt the attacker's ability to cause further harm. Eventually, the weapon was forced away. That moment changed everything. What could have escalated into further violence was stopped at the source. The immediate threat was neutralized, not by tactical units or protective gear, but by direct human intervention, one person stepping into a situation most people would never willingly face. It's important to be clear, this was not without cost. The injuries were real. The risk was extreme. And the outcome was never guaranteed. But that confrontation ended the attack sooner than it otherwise might have ended. And in doing so, it created a dividing line between what happened and what could have happened next. Once the threat was stopped, the scene did not instantly become calm. the fear lingered. People who had been running moments earlier were still scattered, hiding, or frozen in shock, unsure if the danger was truly over. Emergency responders moved in quickly. Police secured the area while paramedics focused on the injured. Among them was Ahmed, bleeding from his arm and hand, the reality of his injuries beginning to set in as adrenaline faded. He was treated on the scene before being rushed to the hospital for further care. Around him, the weight of what had almost happened began to sink in. Witnesses who had fled now realized how close the situation had come to becoming far worse. Some were visibly shaken, others in tears, struggling to process how an ordinary day had turned into a life-threatening ordeal within minutes. As authorities worked to stabilize the area, questions spread just as fast as the fear had earlier. People asked whether there were more attackers, whether it was safe to return, and how something like this could happen in such a public place. Slowly, details began to circulate. Word spread that a civilian had intervened. That someone had run toward the danger instead of away from it. That the attack had been stopped not by chance, but by action. For many on the beach that day, the realization was sobering. Survival had not been guaranteed. It had hinged on seconds, and on one person's decision to step forward. By the time the area was fully secured, the shock remained. But alongside it was something else, relief. The understanding that the situation had ended when it did, not when it could have. And at the center of that realization was a man being treated in a hospital bed, far from the noise and confusion he had just helped bring to an end. What happened on that beach didn't just stop in the moment the attacker was neutralized. The impact of that decision rippled outward, through the crowd, through emergency responders, and through an entire community trying to understand how close they came to tragedy. In situations like this, timing is everything. Seconds can separate injury from loss of life. Every moment an attacker remains active increases the risk to everyone nearby. By confronting the threat when he did, Ahmed shortened the window of danger. That matters. It matters because public spaces like beaches offer no real protection. There are no walls to hide behind, no controlled entry points, no immediate barriers. Once panic begins, people are exposed, especially children, families, and those unable to run fast enough. By intervening, Ahmed disrupted that chain of events. Authorities later acknowledged that the situation could have escalated far beyond what it did. The potential for mass harm was real. The outcome, however, was altered, not by luck alone, but by someone choosing to act when fear would have justified doing nothing. His actions also challenged a common assumption, that safety is always someone else's responsibility. That protection only comes from uniforms, training, or authority. In this case, the turning point came from an ordinary person who refused to look away. Community leaders and officials spoke carefully afterward. They avoided exaggeration, but the message was clear: lives were likely saved. The threat ended sooner than it otherwise might have. The chaos was contained. But beyond statistics or official statements, the deeper impact was human. People who were there that day went home with the knowledge that survival sometimes depends on courage appearing where it's least expected. That bravery does not announce itself. It shows up suddenly, imperfectly, and at great personal cost. This wasn't about becoming a symbol. It was about choosing action over hesitation, and changing the outcome for everyone else. Courage often looks powerful from the outside, but it always carries a cost that isn't immediately visible. After the chaos faded and the beach was cleared, Ahmed's reality became painfully personal. He wasn't just the man who stopped the threat, he was a patient recovering from gunshot wounds. His injuries to the arm and hand required medical treatment and careful monitoring, and recovery would not be instant. Physical pain was only one part of it. What he had experienced in those moments, the noise, the fear, the split-second decisions, doesn't simply disappear once the danger is gone. Incidents like this leave lasting emotional weight. Shock, replayed memories, and the quiet realization of how close things came can take time to process. Then there is the family. Ahmed is a father of 2 daughters. While he was being treated, they were left to absorb the news that their father had been injured while protecting strangers. For families, moments like this bring conflicting emotions: pride, fear, gratitude, and the unsettling thought of what might have happened if the outcome had been different. Acts of bravery are often described in headlines and sound bites, but behind them are people who must return to normal life carrying extraordinary experiences. Recovery means more than healing wounds. It means finding balance again after standing face to face with danger. Ahmed did not step forward expecting recognition, injury, or a place in public discussion. He acted in the moment, and afterward, he was left to deal with the consequences quietly. This is the side of courage that rarely gets attention, the part that continues long after the cameras turn away. As news of what happened spread beyond the beach, the reaction from the wider community was immediate and emotional. What began as shock quickly turned into gratitude, and then into action. Messages of support poured in from people who had been there that day, from locals who knew the beach well, and from strangers who simply understood the weight of what had been prevented. Many expressed the same sentiment, that they were alive, unharmed, or reunited with loved ones because someone chose to intervene. Support efforts followed naturally. People wanted to help in tangible ways, to contribute to medical recovery, to ease the burden on his family, and to show appreciation that words alone couldn't fully express. The response reflected something deeper than sympathy. It was a collective recognition of selflessness. Community leaders echoed this feeling, carefully acknowledging the bravery shown while reminding the public of the seriousness of what occurred. The tone was not celebratory, but respectful, focused on gratitude rather than glorification. For many, this moment became a point of reflection. Conversations emerged about responsibility, courage, and the unpredictable nature of public safety. People discussed what it means to look out for one another, and how quickly ordinary days can demand extraordinary choices. In a time often marked by division and distance, the response showed something else: unity around a shared understanding of human instinct to protect life. The community didn't just respond to an incident. It responded to a reminder that even in moments of fear, compassion and courage can still take center stage. When moments like this are revisited, they often get reduced to headlines or labels. But what happened at Bondi represents something far deeper than a single act of bravery. It represents how ordinary people can be placed in extraordinary situations without warning. There was no build-up, no preparation, no sense that this day would be different from any other. Yet in seconds, normal life was replaced by chaos, and a decision had to be made. This moment challenges the idea that courage only belongs to those trained for danger. There was no uniform, no authority, no obligation. The response came from instinct, the same instinct that drives parents to protect their children, strangers to help one another, and communities to stand together in crisis. It also exposes a difficult truth: fear and responsibility often collide. Most people ran because that is human. Survival is natural. But sometimes, in rare moments, responsibility overrides fear, not because someone feels fearless, but because they feel compelled. What happened at Bondi reminds us that heroism is not loud or rehearsed. It doesn't come with certainty. It appears suddenly, often at great personal risk, and disappears just as quietly afterward. This moment wasn't about recognition or legacy. It was about a choice made in seconds, a choice that changed the outcome for countless others. And that is what gives it meaning beyond the event itself. History often remembers moments like this in hindsight, after the danger has passed, after the headlines fade, after the questions settle. But courage doesn't wait for clarity. It happens in the middle of confusion, fear, and uncertainty. On that day at Bondi, there were no guarantees. No assurance that stepping forward would make things better. Only the knowledge that doing nothing could make things worse. One man didn't run. Because of that decision, lives were likely saved. Families went home together. A moment that could have ended in unimaginable loss was interrupted, not erased, but changed. And that leaves us with questions worth sitting with. What would you have done in that moment? What does courage mean when there's no time to think? And how many lives are shaped by decisions we never see coming? If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more real-world stories that explore courage, consequence, and the moments that redefine ordinary people. Because sometimes, the most powerful stories aren't about what happened. They're about what didn't.